Hello, y'all. Just want to let you know I just got done filming this interview with Jeff Dunas. This is the my Inspiring Mind series, and you don't want to miss this one. I know a lot of you guys don't watch the Inspiring Mind series. They get the least views of all, but this is a good one. So Jeff has a lot of experience, and he's a great guy. And he's it's just to hear somebody speak the way he speaks and to share insight that he's developed over 35 years of shooting, and to be able to get that in, all this stuff compressed into, an hour of an interview. Of course I'm going to be putting it out, 10 minutes at a time or 6 minutes or whatever comes out. When it does come up, I would suggest watching it, especially this one. It's it was a great interview. So I had a lot of fun. I want to say thanks to Jeff. Thanks to Jeff and for doing this interview. And, you guys should watch it. So you'll be doing yourself a disservice if you don't watch this. So, check it out.
My name is Jeff Dunas, and I've been a photographer for quite a while. I've been working in a lot of different disciplines in my career. People like to pigeonhole photographers, and I've kind of eluded being pigeonholed, although they've tried. The work I do is primarily portrait and documentary, fine art nudes. I also do a lot of street pictures, so those are sort of the four major categories. I also happen to be the director of the Palm Springs Photo Festival. When I was a child, I was given a camera. I think I was 8 or 9 years old, and this is the classic story. You probably hear this every time you do an interview with anybody. But when I received that camera, I realized that somehow I was making a connection to my future. I really was 8 or 9 years old, and I realized this thing was so fascinating, this camera, and the concept of what I was going to be doing with this camera. I started making contact prints in my garage, and I was just, I think, extraordinarily blown away by the potential to document things, take photographs, and I recognized even then that every photograph I made was an instant that was going to vanish. I mean, in some ways, I've always been very attuned to that concept that time is constantly vanishing and, ellipsed by a new time and so forth. So, the fascinating thing is the only way to capture time is with photographs. Film, photographs, whatever. The new technologies being, whatever they may be, but this is basically, the idea of capturing something is basically comes from photography. And I've always found somehow that really held me like this. So photographing women, photographing people, photographing documentary work, or street pictures particularly, it's just this moment of theater that is there and it's gone. And if you have an intellectual capacity to perceive it about to happen, you can be there, and you can be there when it happens. And that to me is like this incredibly stimulating way to pass my time. And I feel like it's an important thing. It's like I'm not going to leave this earth having just been here and gone. At some point in time, if anybody ever bothers to look through the work that I've done, they're going to be teleported back into time and into these moments that I was able to capture. And so there's something about that that's always grabbed me. And as I went through school and high school and college, it stayed with me. That's all I ever did. I photographed day and night. And the revelation or the epiphany came to me when I was about 14 or 15. And I kept saying, so what am I going to do with this? What do I do? What's the point of all these pictures? What am I going to do? And then this idea came, I'll put together a portfolio. And then I'll show it to people, and they'll maybe pay me for this work. And I'm going to make a living at this. And which is a brazen, extraordinary thing to be conceiving at 15, because at that time there were no photo schools particularly. There were some workshop programs here or there, but in most of the colleges the photo program, if there even was one, was nascent at best, or it came under the graphic arts program or something like that. Print shop or something. But it wasn't. They didn't really have they didn't consider photography as kind of a realistic pursuit at the time, really, to offer that in most schools. So I wasn't really exposed to it in school, but I carried on through school. And in my last year in high school, they actually had a photo class, and I actually signed up for it and found that I was kicked out in 3 weeks because I kept contradicting the teacher. I was way more advanced than him because he was a graphic arts teacher, that they had said, hey, why don't you teach photo? And so he said, I'm kicking you out of this class. you're too disruptive. But I will invite you into my graphic arts class where you don't know Jack, and you're going to listen and learn. I said, okay. And he and I became friends. He's a great guy. But anyway, so long story. I pursued this into my late teens and early 20s and started working for magazines. And my life's work was about magazines, I guess, up until 10 years ago. That's what I did. I was a magazine photographer. Whether that's a viable pursuit anymore, it's anybody's guess. They seem to be disappearing or morphing into iPad podcasts or all kinds of other electronic media that I think is going to be the new way that we receive information and photographs, which, you got to get on the bandwagon. If that's where it's going, you got to be there. So people like yourself, or people that are actually doing multimedia kind of work, are going to be at the vanguard of how we transmit images and concepts visually in the future. Anyway, I did my career as an editorial photographer, and then about 10, I think it's more like 14 years ago, I realized that it was probably time to start looking long term and find out what would be considered a meaningful existence for me, having gotten to this point after 25 years doing this work. And I basically decided not to pursue that work so much anymore and to spend more time working on my own projects that become my books and become exhibitions and become visual areas that I can control and that I own those rights to and that I can produce what I want to produce with them. So I think that's the direction for any photographer. You do your career, you make your money, you make your living, you have to do that. That's important. And that leads you places that you could never have imagined that you would go, opens doors for you. And then you have to start to say, what is all this about? What am I going to be doing with this? How does this mean anything? If you have this random bunch of pictures that you've done for advertising all your life, you have a nice couple of houses, maybe 3 cars in your driveway, and you've got this collection of Ajax and Tide commercials, or photographs. What does that do for you? Whereas, and I'm not putting it down because it's the only money that's real that photographers can earn. So advertising is a blessing, it's a godsend. And I consider my advertising assignments when I get them to be patronage for me as an artist, because they're allowing me to make a reasonable amount of money so that I can pursue what is important to me. So God bless them, I love them all. But as a photographer, you got to have more than that in your archives when you reach a certain age in life, or it's not going to be self-serving. And I firmly believe we're entitled to hopefully the benefits of all the years of work that we've done, if you stay in this career long enough, need to be of some benefit to you as you get older. You need to make some statement. You need to have some impact in photography. Otherwise, it's more of a trade, or I say a profession, but it's not an art form. To me, the art of photography is something that's lifelong. Go off on a tangent. Now you probably want to ask me something more like serious.